Well, welcome, friends. It's an honor to sit here and interview my friend Nancy Pruett and discuss a subject that, admittedly, when I first saw this about the camera and the advent of the camera, how that affected art, I thought, I don't know, why is it? And as I've seen under the hood of this presentation, it has become clear, and this is going to be a fascinating presentation. So let's begin, Nancy, with why is it relevant, the advent of the camera, to the art world?
Well, if you look at my first slide here, on first slide. There you go. What's the first thing someone tells you when they take your photograph? Smile. Well, guess what? She's famous for her smile, but do you see a smile?
No.
No. Leonardo da Vinci worked on this painting for 16 years. Okay? She was not famous. Her husband was a wealthy baron, and he wanted a portrait of his wife. Well, we didn't have a camera, so what did you do? Well, he worked on it for 16 years. They say the reason she's not smiling, I'm sure you've all heard different stories. One is that, she had wooden teeth because she had false teeth and they hurt and she didn't want to. He came to her home, they did jugglers, they entertained her, And when he died, this was in his studio. He never finished it. And one of his quotes is, he said, an art is never finished, it's just left behind. So he worked on this, and they say it has characteristics of other people other than Mona Lisa, whose real name was Giocondo, okay, her last name. But anyway, the camera came along in somewhere around, during this period, of course, the most, you could be an artist during the Renaissance period because of the Medici family, you were looked up to. That was the profession to be. And then, come 1800s, here comes the camera. Well, why do we make art?
The way we express
Well,
maybe.
we made art during that period so that you could document history.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so it was not really an artist expressing anything, it was just documentation.
It's just their version of what they observed or what they
Just like
deemed as
taking a
important. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so we had artists, and then the camera came. Well, that changed everything. If you have questions, you need to ask me, because I'll just take
Oh,
over.
we will.
And I will, you like to talk.
I have lots of questions.
Okay,
So how then, in this era, post 1839, does the camera and the change to the art world begin to emerge in what we see?
well, we call, and I don't know about y'all, but when I talk modern, contemporary, kind of all one. Well, they're very different, okay? And you think modern, you think of current. Well, guess what? Modern art started at the beginning of when the camera did, in the 1840s, mid-1800s. And, that encompassed artists like Monet. And what happened is the camera allowed people to document, and they didn't need the artist. The artist could then begin to express and see things and create art with their own feeling. So Monet, Monet did series. He would paint haystacks at different times of the day. He enjoyed how light changed the color. So art changed drastically because of the camera. Artists began to make art, and it was personal. Monet's, then at the same time, you have Degas, and I know that y'all recently had an artist, a guest lecture that talked about Degas.
So how do you think that the camera would have played some role in his ability to paint the interesting perspectives that he has in these?
Right, well this looks like a clip, it's normally, before this era, before the camera, it was you had a horizon line and you had, the entire picture. And then came the camera, and this looks like a clip from an image, and it cuts off part of it. And so Degas was interested in movement. He painted horses and he painted ballerinas. He really did not care that much about ballerinas, but he'd spent all of his money for his family given him, and so he had to make money. And so this was the way his painting was sold with Degas. But the camera, with the use of the camera, it allowed him to capture that movement, capture that moment, and not have to make it exact. He captured what he enjoyed the most in the image, which was the movement.
It's interesting that, it would be easy to come to the conclusion that you take a picture of something, you want to paint a picture. But what you're saying is that it freed up the artist
Yes.
to then, express more freely their vision of whatever it is that they're.
Yeah, they started the elements of art, line, shape, color, texture, space, form. All of that started to play a part in what they were doing. They still had somewhat realistic images, but they would take one of those elements, whether it's movement or color or texture, and that would be what they would be interested in. And so the camera allowed them to do this, because if someone just wanted a documentation or something, they'd hire a photographer. So the artists really started developing what their interest, how they saw things. So the camera was a major, created a major change in art.
So how did the progression emerge down different paths with Impressionist artists?
Well, abstract art started. Abstract art is where the artist focuses on the brushstroke, like Van Gogh did. And they did series. They painted different times of the day with the light. Degas, when he did this painting, he was in an asylum. And some say that the reason he was kind of had mental issues is that lead paint. He would put the brush in his mouth and he painted all the time. He probably might have had some issues from that. And, another thing that the camera did, it allowed artists to use different mediums. We think during the Renaissance, they used egg tempera, and then came the oil, and then as it moved up, then we started with acrylic paint, and now, as we'll get into, I'll talk about what the medium is today, which is very different from the beginning, pre-camera. Okay, so I guess the next one.
Yes, you can see the big difference between the last one and this one.
Right, they're about the same time, maybe a little bit, very close when Van Gogh did his painting to Starry Night. But George Seurat, and when I taught art, I taught the kids, Seurat, whatever he paints, he dots. So you'll leave here with that tonight. But he was interested in color theory. And so he would put complementary colors, tiny dots, and then your eyes would optically mix those colors. The problem was, it took years. Okay, so he did 4 large paintings using pointillism, and he did maybe 40 small ones. But this period didn't last long. This style didn't, because it was so tedious. But once again, the camera allowed him, instead of just taking a photograph of this, he could. He was interested in color, and so that's what his art was about. It was not just about the subject matter.
You can see that in Monet too, the brush strokes and the way they blend together.
Yeah,
Dots of paint.
all those elements of art became what the artists were concerned with, not documenting history, not doing a portrait of someone realistically.
The subject matter
This subject
began
matter.
to really diverge from
Yes.
the usual.
Yeah. I'm sure you've all seen this one, Persistence of Memory, the melting clocks, Salvador Dali, a character, very much so.
So as you get into this era, things start to get
Very, yes.
far afield from,
Yeah, this is, in the early 30s, and they were dream oriented. Okay, aesthetically pleasing, that's a word. We went from, doing these paintings that were aesthetically pleasing to surrealism. And, you might look at this and some of Dali's work and other artists, surrealist art, they did a lot of film also, surrealist film. And I'll be honest, some of the contemporary art that's being made today, the film is very disturbing. So it's not aesthetically pleasing. So art changed completely as to what is art.
and the more modern versions, of course, use different mediums and are incorporating a lot more technology. Is that probably contributing to some of the things that you're talking about?
Definitely. Dali probably was a character in himself. He was a work of art, visually, just looking at him, and then his art too. Like I said, very dream, surrealistic art. And then we come to what we call contemporary art. Contemporary art, you can say that it's art made by artists that are alive today, but that doesn't always fit the bill. But contemporary art started kind of when computers came in, okay? A lot of art today is made, it has some connection to a computer. And also, not just that.
Explain the difference between modern art and contemporary art.
So, modern art was the artist expressing their emotions and feelings and interested in the elements and the process, and then you come to modern, and I'll show you an example. This is Christo's, Jean-Claude and Christo, his running fence, okay? Christo and his wife, Jean-Claude, were known for wrapping huge buildings and the Pont-Neuf Bridge and doing this running fence that was 24 miles long. The art in this was the process, okay, of getting the permits, of meeting the people, of working with people and documenting. So this stayed up maybe only a week, and then it came down. And with all of his work, it was temporary. So think about how different that is from Mona Lisa, from Leonardo da Vinci working for 16 years on one painting. The camera changed art and what art is. I guess the social issues of today, the media that we have has changed. It's changed all of us, our lives, and it's changed art. And the camera is what started this, and it allowed all of these things to change.
Yeah, the camera's emergence coincides with the rise of the industrial age. And so, you can kind of see in our world as the world became more mechanistic and more technology, like the camera,
Right.
the art seems to get a little more free and out there.
Very much so. We think of Andy Warhol and his soup cans, and they became very popular. But that was his rebelling against saying, this is an everyday object. Why can't this be art? What is art? Does it have to be aesthetically pleasing for it to be art? And that's your personal choice as to what you think, what art is. this is a contemporary artist, Vicky, and I'm gonna chop her name up, Vanderpop. And she uses an eye tracking software for her art. It's beautiful. It is aesthetically pleasing when you see this in person. It's beautiful. But, once again, she uses technology. And a lot of what contemporary art is driven by technology.
Well, you can see in some of the progressions of modern art on up into our current times, and before we would get to the contemporary art, you could see like Jackson Pollock, for instance, and there's no rhyme or reason to those paintings. When you look back at something like the Mona Lisa, they're so far
Yes.
in the abstract.
Yeah, and once again, what is art? And what is art? That question started being asked, I think, right at the beginning of modern art. And artists started questioning what they were doing and why they were doing it and what they were trying to do. Were they just trying to make something that was aesthetically pleasing? Or was it something more? And it became, like with Dolly, it was very subconscious, and now it really evolves around technology. So they lost me.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you started, you talked about how the camera, with the invention of the camera, that took over the need for documentation or recording of history, right?
It did.
Somewhat. My
Somewhat.
question is,
Yeah.
what do you think about the fact that technology for the moment and recording something in the courtroom is still done by artists?
Right.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I'm sure the person that's videoing this, that's doing this video, is an artist. I'm guessing. And we still have to document certain things. It's necessary. But once again, the camera plays a role in a different way than you still have, kids at school. What do? You have your portraits made, and you still have certain things that have to be documented, like the courtroom.
But what I'm really asking, Nancy, is why aren't cameras and video cameras allowed in the courtrooms?
I think I can answer that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I said it should.
And why do we need an artist? Why do we need an artist to do that?
I believe that the
I see what
artist
you're saying.
renderings in the courtrooms
I see.
are a part of the pageantry of that process. And so that process is older than the country, and it's older than the Constitution. And so I think that there is some level when those transactions are happening in our society that they try to maintain a level of tradition.
So you're saying it's just ritual and tradition?
I think it's ritual. I mean,
But
we
don't you think-
we all watched the OJ trial, and we watched the Michael Jackson doctor, we watched all that trial, all these trials that they just live stream.
They've done a few, but why did they do them?
Well, you talking about the videos?
Why did they allow OJ and a few of these high-profile ones to do that? Why?
Because they sell commercials.
That's right.
It is.
That's right.
But
But
I think the artist rendering of those
Right, I see
historical
what you're
events is probably more related to the fact that
It's
that process is ancient. Well, it's not.
Well, it's
ancient,
not
but
only
it
that.
goes back to the Middle Ages.
don't you think it's the privacy, the privacy of it, that it can't be promulgated? It can't be passed around and shown?
Perhaps, but those are open to the public, so anyone could go and.
Right,
serve.
but they're
It's
not
been
allowed to take
recorded.
pictures, right?
That is true.
Yeah.
With
She
as
has a
we-
point.
As we leave here tonight, some closing thoughts on the camera and its effect on the art world.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Art has progressed and changed. As as our whole world has. I would like to invite everyone to Gainsborough, to our museum. I put this in your seat. We have a Game Mod Contemporary Art Museum, and as I like to say, it's real. It's an amazing place, and we're open Thursday through Sunday, and you're all invited. We'd love to have you. So thank you. I'd also like to say thank you to Tim and Rita for doing this, and what a gift you have been given by having them come and be interested in art and doing this for your community. You're very fortunate.
So I better interrupt while you Tim. So thank you very much for speaking tonight. Thank you, Evan, for interviewing. Please stick around, enjoy yourself, turn these chairs around, get in conversation circles, continue this conversation that Faye started. And Faye and Nancy are old friends.
Yeah, we're good friends. I wasn't supposed to ask a question.
Yeah. And so, but circle up, and I'm sure Faye and Nancy would be happy to answer any questions you have about all this. And I've seen him looking at Brent. I'm sure he's got a lot of thoughts about all this too. One of our amazing artists, part of Paint Livingston. So thank you for coming tonight. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Evan. Let's give him a hand.